As it was said before, we're facing some difficult economic times coming up, especially as we look towards this next budget. And I'm wondering, what's the future of this program? Is there a commitment from the governor to continue at the same funding level? What are we looking at?
Well, to be very honest with you, the devil's in the details. And right now, that's what we're working on. We've got a commitment to expand the program. I really made the case to the governor and staff that we need to start at 4th grade. And how we do that in terms of making sure we have a linkage coordinator in each of those feeder schools, making sure we have enough dollars to do the field trips, understand even dollars are for rites of passage. So that a kid is immersed in some kind of program where he gets to talk about, my daddy beat my mama up last night. And when we talk about social, emotional, and academics in terms of a kid coming to the plate of learning, then if daddy beat mama up and that kid goes to school, he can't hear how to add and subtract. He's worried about this other stuff. So our program deals with even those kind of dialogues with kids in terms of pulling this kind of thing out of them, which is certainly paid off in terms of them, erasing their false boundaries. To be honest with you, Julie, I don't know, but as you know, I was able to get $250 million for all-day, everyday kindergarten. I was able to get money for staff when I was a legislator. I know how to fight for it. I know the language that it will take, because the devil will be in the details in terms of the possibility of just giving a pot of dollars to a school without being directive. And in this case, I think we need to be directive. You must do X, Y, and Z in order to make this happen. So that I'm going to weigh in on that in that regard. I know the governor's going to mention it in his State of the State. So I'm feeling good that it's going to happen, but I know I got to hurry up and make sure I can walk on this leg so I can get there and fight.
Hi, I have a question about accountability and No Child Left Behind. I remember when No Child Left Behind was being proposed, I heard you speak, and at that time you were a cautious, without putting words in your mouth, a cautious proponent of some aspects of it because you felt that at least testing would be done and we would know the exact status of things so that then we could hold districts accountable. Now we're several years into No Child Left Behind, and I had a two-part question. One is, how do you feel, where do you feel we are now, and how effective have we been in actually determining what the actual status of things are in each district and holding the district accountable? And then the second part of the question is what advice would you give Arnie Duncan now as No Child Left Behind is getting reauthorized and how he should navigate that minefield?
I think No Child Left Behind has done like this Department of Education and like all bureaucrats in terms of able to test kids. So they're clear on how to test them. But what's not clear is the remedy. And also what's not clear is even the judgment of a school in terms of the standards that they meet. So if I were to change it, first of all, I would validate many other instruments in terms of judging schools beyond the test. And I would look at tests in such a way that they were tests that gave teachers diagnosis, a diagnostic kind of a thing, to teach, as opposed to the minute you test and you get a bad score, then there's a label on you, and then there's a this, and then there's a that, and then there's this, all of that, as opposed to allowing those schools to experiment and do something different. I would like them to concentrate on, I think this whole graduation rate has not been looked at in terms of a requirement of the No Child Left Behind. I think when I began to look at the graduation rate, like, okay, you're doing great, 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 but what is your graduation rate? it set up a whole different paradigm of how people began to look at their school, especially in the disaggregate. We must have the disaggregate. In other words, we must have scores for black children, white children, male, female, special needs children, because none of those things, you can't be considered like I'm okay if none of those things are on par. You know, if you're leaving one group of kids behind, which we have done in the past. So I would weigh in. I think I'd like to get rid of it, to be honest with you. But if we're going to tweak around the edges, then we've got to deal with this whole area of, okay, you've mastered the testing. Now what? Okay, and then you got the piece around putting pressure on schools as it relates to graduation rate.
Hi, C.J. I'm Keith Reed. I'm the new editor of Catalyst, Ohio, which I hope everybody around the room has gotten a copy of. My question has already been addressed in some form. I want to ask it in a little bit of a different way. Given that we know that there are not enough African-American male teachers to go around for every black male child to be in a class where there is one, what are some of the other core competencies that you believe teachers must have in order to address this problem? And then what are the parts of the program that you're working on, the governor's initiative, that will broaden the pool of black male teachers or teachers that have those other core competencies that can help African-American children?
First of all, we tried to supplement this African-American male by insisting that school districts use some of those dollars to do the rites of passage, always led by black males, or the 100 black men be involved in something, or the Urban League be involved in something, to sort of like supplant or supplement the lack of them seeing a black male in a professional role or some other kind of way. Our program has not looked at how we encourage school districts to hire black males, or even how we deal with the retention level in colleges on black males. And again, that retention level is low, as is all other kinds of things, as we deal with this whole issue of black males in college. But I have been in a lot of conversations with people around this particular issue. Even been in contact with administration in Cleveland public schools on this issue. So people are aware of this issue and are trying to work it through. Actually, you're looking at alternative certificates, but I'm not a champion of those. I think that a teacher, you can't just feel that you can teach without being trained. And some of this alternative stuff says, okay, you know, we got a science teacher, a scientist, so therefore he ought to be able to come into school and teach science. So we can look at that, but they absolutely need to be trained. Most of the black males that are in school are going into administration. Again, this is, until we make that teaching role in terms of money and so on and so forth equal to the administration role, then, I'm finding black male principals with no black staff across the state. Cincinnati, Dayton, black male principals strutting around doing their thing, but they have no black males teaching in the classrooms. It's a problem. There's so much I can do, and this is one of the things that I said, if I allow myself to be broadened, I can deal with all of this, but I'm going to focus. I think it's time to focus on the issue of black males in this regard.